Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Sarasa series of pens. It is the 20th anniversary this year of the Sarasa Clip. The Sarasa Clip was released in 2003 in 10 colors to start with. Later on in this video, I am going to take you through the Sarasa series timeline that Zebra Japan has on their website because I think it's really cool and gives you a little bit of an idea on just kind of like the order in which things have come out in this series that's become pretty innovative. So one thing that was interesting to me was realizing I always kind of wondered why I didn't favor the Sarasa Clip when I was in university in Japan, and that's because I would have been done there before 2003. So that sort of answered that mystery to me. I did have Zebra Sarasa pen that I really liked using when I was studying there. But it was basically like the iteration before Sarasa Clip. It didn't have like the strong binder clip. It was just, slightly different. I think it was eventually called like the Sarasa Original and then discontinued. So anyway, let me show you what they've come out with for the 20th anniversary. Of course, just like a lot of limited editions, this is just very limited quantities, so by the time you see this video it might be sold out, but hopefully not. So first of all, they've done this whole box set of Sarasa pens in limited edition bodies, and I'm going to show you what those are. So the box itself, I think they did a very nice job on, really. Clearly, the theme is gold for this 20th anniversary setup. So let's see. Gonna take everything out. Here we go. So let's talk about the Sarasa Grand first. So you can see it's got the gold body grip. It's a nice brass grip, and you've got the gold clip and a kind of off-white barrel with the gold accents. It comes pre-filled with black Sarasa ink in 0.5, but of course you can refill it with any Sarasa Clip refill, including the vintage colors. It's kind of reminiscent of this limited edition they did. It's that they've used that same brass grip area on the pen. So it looks a lot like that one, really, if you remember this one. Okay. So here's your Sarasa Grand. Now the Sarasa Grand, in addition to coming in this 4-pen set, you can also get it just individually in case you're not interested in the other pens. So moving on to the next pen here, we've got a Sarasa Nano. Now the thing that's really cool about this is, of course, the gold nose instead of the silver nose. So you've got that gold metal nose, your off-white body. They're calling it white, but really it's a a little bit of an off-white or creamy white. And it's got a 0.3 Sarasa gel ink in there, just like the rest of the Sarasa Nanos. In black, this one. All of the inks for this limited edition are black inks, so you could, of course, refill in a different color. And these bodies will all take the different variety of Sarasa refills, like the standard size ones. If you're interested in what those are, there are links to the different refills that will fit in the product description on our website, which you can find below. This is a Sarasa Clip with gold grip, some gold accents with the 20th anniversary celebration design. The clip has the gold accents as well. And again, that kind of off-white body. And finally, the Sarasa R, which again is in black. This one is in 0.4. The Sarasa R ink. It's got your gold. It's kind of more of a rose gold, actually, I would say. Accent colors on here. Simple. Body design. So there is the 20th anniversary set. I'm very excited about the Grand and the Nano in particular. I love that gold nose. And yeah, I would consider it more of a rose gold, really. I'm gonna close this just so you can see one more time what the whole set looks like, because I think if you're gifting it, it's quite nice looking in the box. Yeah, so now let's transition to seeing that cool timeline I told you about before. We can talk about the Sarasa a little more. I wanted to show you this cool Sarasa pen timeline that Zebra Japan has on their website right now. So one thing I thought was really interesting was being reminded that the Sarasa gel pen started in 2003 as the Sarasa Clip option, and it came in 10 basic colors, and it would have been competing with like the Uniball Signo DX that was already around at the time, and the High-Tech C, which used to be available in a lot more colors, but those were both capped pens. Now there was a Sarasa gel pen that didn't have as like serious of a binder clip that you might remember, that was around before 2003, but it did not come in as many colors, if I recall correctly. But the Sarasa gel ink was in existence to some degree before 2003, but the Sarasa Clip came on the scene in 2003 in those 10 colors. So aside from having the pretty serious binder clip, it advertised smooth writing and bright colors. It's acid-free, water-resistant, water-based pigment ink makes it archival quality. And I'm not sure about in 2003, but nowadays the Sarasa Clip body is made of 76% recycled plastic. So it is an eco-certified product in Japan currently. So then 6 years later in 2009, you can see they came out with 10 more colors in the Sarasa Clip lineup. And so that's when you started seeing like blue, green, the magenta, the brown, and the gray come on the scene. And then we had to wait 4 more years before the next new Sarasa pin came out, and that was the Sarasa Study. And that pin was supposed to kind of help motivate you by showing how much ink you had used studying. And that pen, of course, is still available these days. A couple years later, in 2015, the Milky colors came out. These colors look good on both white and black. And then a year later, in 2016, a couple very different lineups expanded the colorway. The neons, 5 neons came out, and 5 of the original vintage colors came out. And those, of course, were available in 0.5 millimeter. And then later that year, the Sarasa Dry came out, which was a good option for people who like to do a lot of highlighting over their Sarasa ink. It was made to have less smear. In 2018, the Sarasa Clip Marble came out, so that's a real fun pen if you haven't tried it, where you can, essentially you get a surprise because there's multiple ink colors in your barrel and you don't know exactly what's going to come out. It could be a mix of a couple of the colors or the colors kind of individually, so you get this really marbled look when you're writing. Then the Sarasa Mark-On came out, which was improving the highlighter benefit. I forgot to mention with the Sarasa Dry, it was really, they were trying to keep in mind left-handed people for less smear. So that was also behind the quick drying. And then in 2019, we saw 5 more vintage colors. In 2020, they changed the Sarasa Grand lineup to be the Sarasa Grand Vintage. In the kind of like portion of this video where I'm showing you some of the product, I have an older Sarasa Grand, so I can kind of show you what has changed in that one in case you're interested. I wish the timeline included when the original Sarasa Grand came out. I think it doesn't because they're trying to focus the timeline on products that you can still get currently, so that's why they just have this updated Sarasa Grand Vintage date on there. And then in 2021, the Sarasa Clip Shiny colors came out. And there's 10 of those shiny colors. And then later on that year, the Sarasa R came out. I've done videos on the Sarasa R ink. So if you want to learn more about the Sarasa R, I know there are pretty recent videos on that. And then that same year we had the Sarasa Nano. That was pretty exciting because the Sarasa Nano body has like a metal nose, So when you're writing with the fine 0.3, it actually feels sturdier to me, and your color can lay more boldly even though it's a very fine 0.3. And the Sarasa Nano also includes some of those vintage colors. So for people who were really wanting the Sarasa Clip Vintage in finer color option, it was exciting to have those 0.3 colors come out. The inside is the same, so it uses the same refills as the Sarasa Clip. And something I forgot to mention when we were just talking about the Sarasa R, but my videos would go into depth more about this, is some of the vintage or like vintage similar colors came in 0.4 in that lineup, or I should say come in 0.4 in that lineup. So you have even more tip size options with some of those really cool colors in the Sarasa R. And then of course they're teasing us here with the idea of something coming soon. So we'll see what that is. But anyway, you can find this whole timeline if you're interested on the Zebra website. Okay, finally, I did promise you when we were going through the timeline that I would show you the different body style of the original Grand and when they, switched it to the Sarasa Grand Vintage. So this is like the, newer Sarasa Grand Vintage style of body. And one of the main differences in the design, aside from the silver clip, is they actually made the nose thicker. This part. And I definitely could tell a difference. Like it feels a little different when you're writing. So if you were used to that original Grand, you might have noticed that when they switched to the Sarasa Grand Vintage. It's just, they redesigned the nose a little bit. So this is one of the original ones, which I wish I could figure out what year this came out. Might have to do a little bit more research. If you know, let us know below. All right, so if you have any more questions about the Sarasa 20th anniversary, the Sarasa gel ink, any of the derivatives of or spin-offs of the Sarasa pen, or any questions about things we talked about in the timeline, please, as always, let me know below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week. I will talk to you soon. Bye.